That was a really great thing for me, was like to show up, create that daily discipline, and then from the discipline, the experience of great freedom, of boundless freedom. Because most moments, moment to moment, I do not feel free.
Right.
It's when I'm practicing or connected, when I feel reunited with my freedom, or those aspect of myself that is like, you were born free, sister, you just forgot, you know? So the practice helps me remember.
That was Dana Trixie Flynn. Hey everyone, and welcome to another Yogi Misfit Sessions. I'm Danny Pomploon, and I am your host. Welcome to session 108. This session was really cool. I actually don't really get to do in-person podcasts often because everyone's just all over the world and whatnot. And Dana just happened to be in San Francisco. So she came over to my studio apartment and we sat here in front of a mic, and it was great because I haven't seen her in maybe 10 years. And we just had a really, really, really cool conversation. She is a rad human and an amazing yoga teacher. We get to know a little bit more about her in this episode, and really she dials it in about how we're all connected and we're all friends, and we have to remember that. And really just stepping into our own individual awesomeness. I had met her about 10 years ago, as you guys will hear in the podcast, and I'll never forget how she called me out in class. It was an honor and a pleasure to be able to do this podcast in person, because there's just this different sense of magic and chemistry when you're able to look at the person in the eyes. And so many deep bows to Dana. And it was great to have her on the show. A quick announcement for all of you guys out there. I have some pretty exciting stuff. If you haven't already gone to the new podcast homepage, go check it out. It's DannyPomploon.com/podcast. We redid all of it. It took a lot of time, a lot of effort. I'm really proud of it. I'm so happy that the show now has a home. You can check out the individual shows like Dharma Dudes and the Fierce Calm collaborations. And there's a great little catalog for you guys to search around. And then also the podcast support page is up. As always, this show doesn't happen without the love and support of you guys listening. We're looking for a few people to just donate a couple things along the way. With every donation that you get to do on our Patreon, we do give away some fun stuff. So you get like a yoga class, you can do an online private. And you can check that out at DannyPomploon.com/support. Both links I'll leave in the show notes. And if just a few of you guys left like $2 a month, the show would be sustainable. We couldn't do this again without our friends over at SF Yoga Magazine too. They are huge supporters. They're always pumping the show through their channels. And it's a pleasure and an honor to do this show. And thank you guys for supporting it. And we can't wait to see this Patreon take off, because we think it's going to do awesome because you guys are awesome. So without further ado, here goes Dana Trixie Flynn on the show. Dana, you're here in real life, which is very strange and weird, and also very exciting. And you're sitting in my apartment. This is the first interview I've done in this apartment.
Awesome. I came here to bless it.
Yeah, I'm into it. And
bless our reunion.
I'm into all the blessings. A little backstory for the listeners out there. I took Dana's class in New York. I think it was 10 years ago? Maybe something like that. Mm-hmm. And I parked myself up by the front window. I wanted to be in the back, and there was no spots left. And there was another guy next to me, and he was doing handstands, so I was warming up. And Dana walks up to me, and she goes, "Who are you?" And I was like, "I'm Danny." And she goes, "Where are you from?" And I said, "San Francisco." And she goes, "Your name is San Francisco from here on out." And then you did a Beyonce playlist that day. Yeah.
That seems very rare.
Yeah. It was like Beyonce, and I remember you came in wearing this jumpsuit. It was like I think it was either solid pink.
Could be have a pink, purple.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to have to break out the jumpsuits again.
You should break out the jumpsuits. Yeah.
Jump out of the jumpsuit.
Yeah. Maybe do layers of jumpsuits. So what are you up to, Dana? What's going on? How's everything?
I'm so grateful. And I love when we all get to connect in this way and turn each other on and stay inspired. I'm in San Francisco teaching at Laughing Lotus. We opened it 2007.
Mm-hmm.
We first opened up, Jasmine Tarkeshi and I opened up Laughing Lotus in 1999 in New York City.
Yeah.
And then I was born here.
Yeah.
And she grew up here. And we were like, come on. And then more recently, about 3 years ago, I had taken a trip to New Orleans, drove across America with a girlfriend, and I was like, I love it down here.
Yeah.
And when I was there, I was on my way to Bali Spirit Fest. I remember teaching there, and there's this old church for sale. It looks more like a corner store.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so we have, I've opened our first donation or generosity-based yoga center in New Orleans.
How's it going?
Kind of in the heart of the culture and the music and it's intense. It's great. It's beautiful. It's romantic. It's a lot of things.
What was the concept and what made you like want to pull the trigger and say, yeah, I'm going to do this thing now?
I got to New Orleans. It was Easter weekend. We were driving to LA, but we came down first. And I had never been the kid that drove across America. So I was doing it while I owned a bar called Trixie's. That's why I ended up putting Trixie in my middle name.
Right.
It's like Dana Flynn, but everybody called me Trixie's. And I'm like, what if I'm looking for some Trixie folk?
Right.
I'll put Dana Trixie Flynn. And then everyone just started calling me DTF. It wasn't really planned.
That's good.
Yeah. So I had Trixie's and I was looking to create like a party motel in LA, like those old motels that had kind of run down. Now because there's less space, but back in the day, LA just had a ton of sprawling space. So I was like, I'm going to take this motel. Every room's going to be a party room. Like, you know, when you go to the Madonna Inn? Yeah. And you can rent a room or it could be a rap party, you know, at the end of a movie. And we can all meet in this one place.
Right.
And dial up for the mariachi band or the dog act or the Lazy Susan or depending on what you're...
Or all the above.
Yeah. So I had actually secured a space on Venice Beach on Speedway in like 26th. Before I got there, thinking I might spend more time in LA, even though I still had Trixie's Bar on 47th, 8th and 9th.
Right.
And then, so I'd actually just gotten clean and sober, and that's when I got turned on to yoga. So when I drove across America with Laura, we got to New Orleans, and it was like beads and bonnets and ball gowns and bunnies and baubles, and the music and the streets and the aliveness and the color and the generosity of the spirit and really, really touched me. And I kept coming back. And Jasmine and I, when we were together, would come back. And then it was like a calling. I saw this church which just looked like a rectangle, to be honest.
Right.
And basically everyone was like, you're crazy. You're going to have to build a whole building inside that building because of the water and the termites and the
everything else.
Post-Katrina. And I tried to let it go, and it was like, oh, wait, I'm just going to come down here and relax more, so to speak, you know? And it really became like a calling. Like I felt like called to do it and create community. And I learned a lot from doing it. It's, you know, a real different experience. Yeah. When you're from somewhere else. Like people down there ask you what high school you went to. Right. So it's a real different vibe. And then it takes... In New York, nobody even notices you if you open up a business. And so it was really humbling in a lot of ways to learn how to, listen, really listen and see, you're from somewhere else and you're coming into our town and the South is slow to change. And what does it really mean to be of service? Right. And to be a part of and to create community and what do people even want and finding out, kind of letting the space grow into what it needs to be. Right. Yeah. How long has the space been open for? We're coming up on 3 years, February 11th. Wow. So it's been going for quite a bit. Yeah, it was quite a renovation. It was literally a whole new... The only thing that remains is a baptismal font. Okay. From the whole church. Yeah. And on the outside, it's got my favorites: Frida Kahlo, Janis Joplin, Billie Holiday, and we had to get Louis Armstrong up there. Yeah. Because it's New Orleans. San Francisco, I hear. Yeah, we're live. Martin Luther King and then the Dalai Lama is kind of silhouetted on the outside. Okay. And then big exploding lotuses. You know the great mural artist, Jose Martinez?
I don't.
He's got the flowers next to Samovar, like he does.
Oh, yeah.
So I was inspired by his flowers, and so they're not roses, but they're lotuses, and they have this quality of like, I would say exploding or coming alive or transformation, awakening, sure. That quality of honoring the great beings that are mad inspiration and have lived so deeply and so real. And then the quality of all of me wanting to live and stay inspired and inspire each other, and that explosion of consciousness, really.
I think that there's, we have our variation of donation yoga here in the city. Yoga to the people is a big thing. And I think that yoga for a lot of communities, and I would assume, I don't really know, but I would assume maybe even in New Orleans, where there is a more community with people of color and low income and so on and so forth, that it's not accessible or as accessible. Yoga can seem like it's for
exclusive or something.
Yeah, it definitely can. It is in a lot of ways for people of privilege. Have you seen it? What's the community turnout like? I'm sure it's got to be first amazing and awesome to be able to offer it. You just literally just open the doors.
You're going
to
to come on
people.
down and teach. So
okay,
there's your invitation.
I'm in. Sign me up. I haven't been to Nolans in a while.
Yeah, it's definitely unfolding. And I feel like people are finding out about us and telling friends. And there is, I know that, I feel like when we first, there's a lot I don't know, but what I did experience coming into the neighborhood is that people are like, well, why do we want you? This is a community center. Who says what kind of community? Yoga, dance, movement, meditation. Why do I necessarily want yoga?
Right.
Like there wasn't that understanding of maybe like it might be for other people or for white people.
Right.
The wellness aspect or the well-being of it,
right.
Or the peaceful quality of it, or the benefits of yoga. So that's takes some outreach and learning how to communicate, and also having a great team of people that are of color.
Yeah.
And step by step, and with a lot of breath and a lot of listening.
Yeah.
We have a very strong community there, so very grateful. Yeah. It's
one of the bigger things that I think a lot of, we don't really hit it a lot in $200 teacher trainings and things like that, but Seva being a big part of yoga, it's a huge part of it. And then we go into Bhakti as well. And really, when I like to remember, that yoga reminds us all of the source, and we're humans, and we live in America or wherever people are listening to this at. And so it's really easy to get caught up in things and stuff, and like labels. And I like to put myself in this box. And so because I put myself in this box, this person's in that box, and now this person is there. And so the reference that another teacher used that I love so much is like, we're all like the waves of the ocean, and we get caught up on surface level waves, right? And why does that wave look like that? And that wave has a little more of the white fuzzy stuff on top. Oh, well, look at that wave over there. Why is it doing that? And while we're up here visiting on the surface, we forget that all of us come back from like this main source, from like that deep within well of just conscious and connected. But it's because we get caught up in the world of this.
Well, the waves are also like the vrittis, the fluctuations of the mind.
Yeah.
There's a great line from Satchitananda says, and it shows him. It was an early poster of him actually that. Who's the great artist? Peter Max.
Okay.
And it's a picture of him on a surfboard with a little lungi on, like in tree pose.
Yeah.
And on the top of a wave. And it says, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn how to surf them.
Yeah.
And that's our practice. And if we're getting caught in boxes and egos, it's just the nature of the mind. We get caught. Mm-hmm. And then and we don't see it until I don't see it. I'll speak for myself until I can see it. And Bhakti Yoga is definitely service.
Yeah.
That's the fastest way to God is to love God. And who are we loving? God is all.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah, so that's some deep work. It's definitely seva, and it's definitely a karma yogi, bhakti yogi, and I love to chant.
You?
I love to. I love the connection.
Yeah.
I love the connection, and also in recovery. I mean, such a big part of recovery is that keeping, being of service to another alcoholic or addict, and so it's like giving it away to keep it. Right. And so that's really, I'm called to do that.
Yeah. Do you think that the act of being of service was more prevalent for you because of recovery, or do you think it hand in hand with yoga, one or the other, or both just kind of came in?
It actually started great. I love seeing that. Like, that's still my path. So when I was young, my household wasn't the happiest place to hang out. Yeah. So it was like, okay, plan B pretty quickly.
Right.
And that I got into, I was like, organized the dances at school and all the community events. Okay. So it started very young for me. I did a 24-hour dance marathon for muscular dystrophy and raised a bunch of money. And then I was like the president of the school. So I was, that was the connection for me, was each other. It was like, our hearts are lonely without each other. Like, we need each other. And something in me in that very difficult, confusing time as a kid my heart knew that. My heart knew that it couldn't be alone, that it would be too much suffering. Yeah. And so I was very nourished in that way and felt my world grew, like my world got bigger, being a part of something bigger than me and my limiting belief systems.
It's interesting. Similar in some ways. My house was not the nicest place to be in growing up, and so I think my title in school was like entertainment commissioner. I was in charge of the pep rals. And I was
big surprise.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, shocking. I hosted the pep rallies, and then I was on student body, and did something for what I was lacking at home. I wanted to find in other places, and even now as an adult, I see myself being the person who is consistently trying to be the glue or create the community or bring the people together. Or I like to call it master connector. Because I'm always like, I know a person. Yep, and I know a person that knows a person.
Right.
And these two people should get to know each other.
Collaborate.
Yeah. Let's do that. You've done. You have an incredible presence when you walk into a room, and especially when you go in to teach. I'm sure there's got to be threads of that what you just said. It's so beautifully. Our hearts. What you said. Our hearts are lonely without each other. How do you bring that into your practice, into your teaching, into who you all that is Dana in a yoga space?
I'm often likely saying things I need to hear.
Yeah, I'd say it totally.
Because I have that built-in forgetter. I have that amnesia, and for example, I was turned on by the Hafez poem that was a big part of my class today, or the offering, the sharing, and not like I came up with it, but God and I made a connection. And it's the Hafez poem where it's essentially Hafez, the great poet. His name means memorizer, and he wrote, his books are collected. Ladinsky kind of captured the essence of his in a book called The Gift. Yeah. And he also wrote, I Heard God Laughing. Okay. And that's how we actually first named Laughing Lotus. We loved the sound of laughter, and everyone was like, my yoga is better than your yoga. Right. Kind of like my God's better than your God. Yeah. And the poem is, laughter is the glorious sound of the soul waking up. And that's actually why we put laughing in the title. So we could laugh more and experience more joy and the joy of living. And even if you say you're going to laughing, maybe it's already a mantra that we were inspired because even like somebody like the Dalai Lama who's laughing and giddy and has this great laugh, and yet he's lost his country and his people have been, so destroyed.
Right.
And it doesn't mean like, once all these difficult things are over in my life, then I can be happy. Like the practice is now.
Yeah.
Joy is now. So the essence of this one is called tripping over joy.
Okay. That
we think that we have 1,000 serious more moves to make.
Yeah.
But the yogi has a good sense that, so we did this move like brushing off these 1,000 serious moves to, and then reaching back and stepping into tripping over joy became a move, a shape, an asana. And so we were tripping over joy, and not once this happens, or once I have a boyfriend, or once I get this job done, or once my friend isn't sick, or that the practice is now, and we know this, but we, saying it, what keeps us, what's the distance between happiness and us, and why is there this sense of waiting, or like, well, I'm kind of happy, but once these things happen, then I can really experience happiness.
Yeah. And
so that rolled into my practice today, and I hang out on the mat, and I also swim, which is a more recent passion of mine. And usually things that are challenging me or exciting me or nudging me to wake up when I go back to sleep, which is every other breath.
Yeah.
I'm usually keeping it pretty real in there,
Yeah. Yeah. It's gotta, you kind of almost have to, I love that. People in the room like, oh, thank you for what you said today, and like, oh, what you spoke or whatever. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I said.
Right. You're
welcome, but I think about whatever it was definitely for me.
Yeah, if it happens to help you out, great.
Yeah, I agree. I try not to make it too. I don't know. For me, the language that I like to use is really like simple and just straightforward. But it's we remind ourselves the subconscious brain loves the repetition. So I'll often hear myself saying the same things in class. For
magic. Another name for magic is repetition.
Oh, I love that. Actually, that's really good. Mm-hmm. I've never heard that before. I'm gonna write that one down. So what else is going on for Dana? You've got the studio going on in Nolens. You're hanging out in San Francisco.
I'm hanging out in San Francisco. I love to come through. I was born here, but never really lived here.
Yeah.
And Jasmine, we were partners and business partners, and now we're friends, eternal friends. And her daughter's 6, Indigo. So I get to come out here and kind of be like a cosmic auntie.
Yeah.
And then connect with the community here. And I have... my friend reminded me yesterday that we met when I was 23 and she was 28. Mm-hmm. And there we are walking on Land's End, soul chatting, going down by the baths and taking in the views and feeling great, like, wow, like real Godsmack stuff,
How long have you been teaching for? How many years?
28.
Wow, 28? Oh my gosh. I had no clue.
Yeah.
I had no clue.
Yeah.
Wow. Does it change every single time you do it?
There is, the way I move is different now. And as the body shifts, I'm doing my best to listen. And I'll run into really cool men and women. Sometimes it's more women because as their bodies are shifting, as they're aging, they think they can't do vinyasa because they don't want to because chaturanga doesn't feel good in their body.
Yeah.
And so I teach a lot of no arangas.
Yeah.
Free classes with real fun crescent lunges and 3-legged splits and downward dog, and
no arangas.
No arangas. And
That's
explore
good.
the flow in a way that they can always step back to downward dog, but it's like there's so much to experience through the medicine and the movement and this churning of the body and this. My goal is I want to go from 0 to God. I'm going for ecstasy. I'm going for oneness. I'm merging. I'm wanting to feel that aliveness, feel that connection. I want to merge with God.
Yeah.
I want to feel God's love working in my life, God's grace.
How do we get people, or I guess what's your...
It's like spiritualizing the physical form, because it's physical and it's physical with a purpose.
Right.
And so everybody's going to have their own time with it.
Yeah.
Like they might come for a while and they're just happy to get stronger.
Yeah.
Or to have less stress. Or to feel more joy.
Right.
And then it takes people's own time to like dig into the sutras or explore ahimsa,
right,
or a plant-based diet, or open up and ask for help. I mean, it sounds like you and I came from a similar family. It's like I would never, first of all, ask anybody for help. Are
you kidding?
I thought I knew I was supposed to know at 7 how to do everything, and figure it all out. So there's a lot of surrender to letting go of the control and having to get it right. And we had mentioned Yogi's High, everyone, right before that. There's sometimes, like you mentioned, your own cycle or rhythm with wanting to create trainings and all these things that you felt seemed like they were really important.
It's all the things I felt like, because it's, I talked really loud and publicly about my burnout, but I was doing, I was looking at my teachers and then all the, quote unquote, commercially successful teachers. And I was like, well, that's what I have to do because that's what they're doing. And at the end of it, I was like, well, what did I do that for? Like, what was the purpose of that?
They needed to do that.
They needed to do that. But no one was going to tell me that I didn't need to do that until after I did it.
You had to take every single step.
Yeah.
And so that quality of investigating, that's what yogis do. They invest. We don't, it's like, hey, whatever you believe to be true, great. No, I'm not telling anyone what to believe in a yoga class. Right. And you're going to go find out yourself whatever you believe. And at the same time, I want, as my beliefs might be changing or as I'm shifting internally and I'm attached to the poses or I'm attached to being, we all want to be liked. We all want to be loved.
Yeah.
Especially early on when you start teaching yoga. If your teacher was that teacher, you think, oh, I'm supposed to teach like them.
Right.
Because if they're popular, just like you're saying, with maybe their track, and then you come to realize it's very personal.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of listening, but maybe that voice, the louder voice up top, is saying, oh, that's how it looks, honey.
Right.
And then the quieter you get, the more you can hear. You're like, actually, this is really the direction that I want to go in. Or maybe you experience a great loss. Maybe you lost a parent or a friend or a lover. And then that opened your eyes, or that has opened my eyes to how I share, or looking at something differently, or wanting more peace.
Right.
I used to think peace was boring.
Yeah.
I was like, really?
Yeah.
You will know peace.
And now you're like, yes, please, I'll take 2. Hey guys, this episode is supported by Bretton-Bush Hot Springs. This cool remote retreat center is located in the Oregon Cascade Mountain Range. This place is an amazing yoga retreat center and conference center. They've had some really awesome guests like Ram Dass, Eckhart Tolle, Jack Kornfield. It's a great place to just get you to dial into yourself and check out. They've got about 26,000 guests a year and they're open year round. Check out brettonbush.com. That's BRETTENBUSH.com. And now, back to our show. When we put ourselves in situations of seva, when we put ourselves in situations of service, of helping others, I feel like it is you said you want that ticket to God, to ecstasy. It is a one-way ticket to get us out of our own
selfishness, self-centeredness.
Just the noise, to get that, to get the buzz from what we think into more of that internal wisdom and really feel and have the experience of where we're at. And when we're there is when we start to tap in. It's when we start to feel source, when we start to feel connected, when we start to feel God, when we start to feel when you start not even feel, when you know God, when you know, heart, love, all the things that go with it. But then again, we live in this world with all of the things. And so we get pulled away and, like we say the reminders in class for us because it's
it's the practice. It's the practice of coming
and
over.
Yesterday's practice is, yesterday.
Yeah, a minute ago's practice was a minute ago.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's definitely ongoing. And like you're saying, well, how has my teaching changed? My teaching changes, my practice changes, and being true to that. Because you could still, like Eric Schiffman, I was always amazed in LA, he never taught Chaturanga.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, if you take one look at him, you can, he didn't teach crow, but he'd rock a backbend.
Right.
Because that was a big part of his practice. And so he was really true to himself. He would teach some of those poses, not necessarily Chaturanga, but he shared what he loved.
Right.
He didn't have to share what he didn't know. It's like and so I'm going to share what I know, but there's a lot that I don't know, but I don't have to teach what I don't know.
Right.
And the vulnerability and the intimacy has always been the biggest gift from my teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I don't have to know, and I can be vulnerable and share those parts of myself that, because there is times when people look up to their teacher.
Yeah.
And sometimes they do want to feel like they know, but when you get that crack and you can share your wounds and let the light come through and really feel that it's such a universal healing that we all have these wounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's being seen and heard as human and not as something above. Or it's going back to connection. It's wanting to feel, the connection to the heart next to you. It's wanting to know.
And growing up, I didn't feel connected to anyone. I had all that othering. You're different than me. I must be. I don't even know how I got here. I'm different than everyone in the neighborhood. I don't belong. The sense of not belonging, not being a part of. And so that's why yoga was such a, first of all, I felt better right away.
Yeah.
I went to class and I was like, oh, I feel better.
Yoga.
And I had two great teachers, Sharon and David.
Yeah.
When they were young and so generous.
Yeah.
And I felt better. It quieted my mind. And some of that, which is different but related, was also the first time when I took a drink. The social anxiety, the sense of what other people thought of me, the low self-esteem, that began to dissolve. Because that first drink let everything go, oh, actually, look at this. And then the medicine, that's not going to work long term.
It's unsustainable. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it became yoga was like, well, if you can't do forward bend, you can't touch your toes and you can't touch your toes and you practice touching your toes for 3 years, you can touch your toes.
Right.
So it creates that confidence. It gives you the confidence in the self that you never had.
Yeah.
And then the fall from grace is that then you do the arm, then then you're attached to those poses, or that feeds your ego. And then guess what? All those poses start to disappear.
Right.
The non-attachment. Every pose I learned how to do begins to move away.
Right. What happens after that?
Well, then it's like the direction is meditation, right? Complete. Yeah. Or if it is that you're drawn to seva, not only for your heart, because if my focus is mostly on myself and self-centered, well, then if I'm not doing something for somebody else because I want for any reason other than to be a part of,
right?
Because if it's like, oh, I'm helping you because there's some condition for it, or look what I'm doing, or I'm doing seva,
right?
Then that's some white savior shit. But if this is saving my life, this is saving my life.
It's real.
Your life is my life.
Right. Some white savior shit.
This is our life. It's not like my life in your life. It's like the same with the fear that comes up. That I used to think, oh, I don't have any of this fear. Yeah. It's not like your fear and my fear. It's like the fear. We have fear.
Yeah.
We stand in it with courage with our yoga practice. And so we get tools and there's a lot of, and there's discipline. And that was a really great thing for me, was to show up, have create that daily discipline. And then from the discipline, the experience of great freedom, of boundless freedom. Because most moments, moment to moment, I do not feel free.
Right.
It's when I'm practicing or connected, when I feel reunited with my freedom or those aspect of myself that is like, you were born free, sister. You just forgot, you know? Right. So the practice helps me remember.
Right.
Yeah.
What does your practice, daily, practice look like now? What is it at this time point in life? Is it, and what's it like? Is it more sitting? Is it more movement? Is it more walks? Is it more nature? Is it more reading? What's manifesting for you right now?
I love to move.
Yeah.
I do love to move. I feel like the movement, I've always loved it, and it's very fluid and dancey, I would say.
You were a dancer before, right?
I've always loved to dance. Jasmine was a dancer.
Okay.
I was like a dancer.
Okay. Well, I want to touch on that too. Because I often, I obviously didn't train with you guys, but I cannot tell you how many people, especially when I first started teaching, people were like, you're a dancer. Did you do Laughing Lotus training? Did you Laughing Lotus training? I was like, what the fuck is Laughing Lotus? I've never even heard of it. But I often got, same for you, like, you're a dancer. And like, no, I just see the way that I experience is fluid. The way that I want to move. The way
the shapes merge and shift.
It's a dance.
Weave and bob and roll.
They interact. They play.
Yeah. And I practiced Tai Chi for many years. And I spun around and got nice and dizzy with the dervishes.
Yeah, okay.
That play, like that kind of turning on the axis, which is where my love for the Rumi poetry and the quality of his relationship, meeting Shams and turning him from a philosopher to a poet. And the longing that the Bhakti yogis have, as well as the Sufis have. Yeah. That God is that divine spark in each one of us.
Yeah.
So,
your practice, you still love them. You're still about the movement for sure.
I love the movement. I love this. I mean, I'm moving so I can be still.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, I get it. I totally understand. You can't keep a Mustang like corralled in, you got to let it run. You got to run the thing.
And I just actually read I just read on the plane on the way here because I love stories of inspiration. What is her name? Tiffany Hadid.
Yeah.
The Black Unicorn. The first. Yeah, I read her book.
Okay.
She's so funny, and of course she grew up. It's such a beautiful, brutal, as they say, beautiful and difficult read of growing up in foster care and crazy amount of abuse and finding the Laugh Factory at like 13 or 15 and then leaving comedy and coming back and that quality of like how we all can, as we, to lift each other up. Mm-hmm. And what I got from her, what was so beautiful, because that the new show that she just did, the first thing she did was celebrate 5 comedians that she grew up with along the way and wanted for them to ascend. Okay. I mean, she was doing her own seva, right? Yeah. She was like, whoever gets famous first,
right?
You gotta like lift, we were like spiritual forklifts for each other. Right. We gotta lift each other up.
Right.
Because the mind on its own is going south of the border.
Right.
Right. And so that's why the mind craves focus.
Right.
Focus is fucking freedom. Right.
Yeah.
And so I remember when I read, I love reading biographies like that and stories and see like, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Yeah. And also it took her 20 years and just like these lucky moments of being seen on a show here and being seen and where her breaks came from. But like, it was a 20-year like,
right.
And so,
grinding,
like you just keep showing up no matter what. That's the magic.
Yeah.
That you show up and you never give up and you do not quit before the miracle, honey.
Right.
And that I have a practice today, like that I get to share it is a huge gift. If it was for me and my, so I could have a relationship with God today, it would be enough for me.
Yeah.
I love sharing it.
Yeah.
And it would be probably hard to stay inside this physical, this body here. And those are the moments when, since the breath is always dancing, even though I don't know, like we might not always think like, well, wow, the movements, like 26,000 times a day, your breath is dancing.
Yeah.
Now you're dancing with it.
Yeah.
And that has me always mesmerized. That we're, most of the day we're not thinking with our breath, and then we come and the teacher's like, breathe deep, all kinds of breathing.
Oh shit, yeah.
And then you're like, wow.
Yeah.
Not only, I remember I had a teacher and was like, if you really want to change your practice, change your breathing.
Yeah.
Because now you become more aware. I become more aware. Like, what is the quality of my breath? The quality of my life.
Right.
And it's moving so fast.
Yeah.
How do I want to live?
Yeah.
What's important to me? And are those things changing?
Yeah.
And they're always changing.
Yeah.
The movement part has stayed.
Yeah.
It was really cool when I left a class of Eric Schiffman's in LA many years ago. And he had, he was like the Papa Bear to me. I mean, and then Ram Dass was the Papa Bear after that, Baba Ram Dass. And he was a big inspiration for me. And I asked Eric after class, like, I was like, this was probably 15, 16 years ago. And I was like, Eric, how do you do it? How do you keep showing up? Like, because I had all this enthusiasm and I did feel like it would come with me. I mean, you don't wake up every day on fire, enthusiastic, and like, I can't live. My friend wakes up and the first thing he hears is, you're going down, motherfucker.
Right.
Like, that's the first thing he hears.
Right.
And so that's why I often remind students, like, get a new alarm clock. Like, the same alarm clock that used to wake you up might not wake you up anymore.
Right.
Get a freaking peacock or a rooster. Wake up, run to your mat, and stay. Those are my 3 steps,
Rooster in my San Francisco apartment.
You'd be a real hit, right?
A real hit.
Get up early, run to your mat, and stay. Because that's the time for most people in the morning is to set up that's the spiritual foundation for me. And so, I might move in different ways, but I'm moving with my breath. And the dance is on. The cosmic dance of the universe for me is on in those moments. Yeah. And I'm at least as thrilled about shapes. Yeah. And the ones that fall away are such the reminder of like impermanence, non-attachment. And I remember by the end of Twyla Tharp's life, she couldn't dance the dances she choreographed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we forget. We also, we get injured, we get older, life happens, and so we can't get stuck on it. There's no... you can get stuck on it. It's not it's not a good thing. It's not a good idea to do.
But you're going to reach back one day and your foot's not going to be there.
Right.
And the beat's got to go on. It cannot be a condition for your happiness.
Right.
And it's great for the ego. It's because otherwise, how are we going to come in touch with the ego? And that's why when you get that great article which is a timeless article from Joel Kramer, that in the beginning when we all practice, and if you don't have it, definitely read it.
This is up.
Joel Kramer. It's an article that's like written 20-something years ago.
Okay, I'll put it in the show notes for sure.
Yeah. And that we, almost immediately, first you're in downward dog and you're shaking and you're like, the teacher's crazy, and then all of a sudden you're like spreading your fingers and lengthening your arms and dropping your tailbone. For the beginning, your tailbone's sky high. Yeah. And then later on, it kind of goes back and it might even ground down. Like it changes as you're changing. Or there's no one way, clearly, because we have different bodies. Even though we're exploring the same shape, we've got to express the shape uniquely through each one of us. Express it in your own way. And so Joel Kramer really kind of shows this fast English. You practice and you progress and you practice and you progress. And so there's lots of quick progression, and then there's a great leveling out. You probably experienced it.
Yep.
There's a huge plateau.
Yeah.
And that's when we lose the yogis from the bogies. That's when that's like you fall away or you find something else, or maybe it's not yoga. And like that's the part of the biggest transformation is like there's no result. There's no outcome. This is a program or a practice. This is a spiritual, this is a practice to practice.
Yep. Yeah. It's
like practice means practice means practice.
Yeah. No more, no less.
No results.
Today is the last pose is different than the first one.
No results, no outcome.
Yeah.
You're practicing to practice.
Yeah.
So I did a whole class. Practice means practice means practice, practice.
Right.
Practice means practice means practice, practice. And everybody clapping and chanting, and because we are practicing often because we want something.
Right.
And it's okay to see that. Practice to practice.
Just do the thing to do the thing.
Do it.
And that's it.
Practice with all your heart. Practice with all your heart.
I love it. Dana, I'm stoked to see you. This is so cool. Fangirl moment for sure. And I hope that, there's so many people. I've had multiple students go to New York and move to New York. And you're one of the first. I have two people that I have them see. My friend Alyssa, who moved out there and teaches acro yoga. She's an amazing acro yoga teacher. And I always say, you have to go to Dana Flynn's sets. You have to at least experience it once. There's a handful of teachers in the world, I think, that you have to go and visit. Yours is on my top 5.
Very generous of you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Danny.
It's great to have you here, and it's great to see you in person and to have you come on the show and do a live one. You're in my apartment. This is great.
And I love it. And I love the story behind it too. Manifest her.
Thank you. Yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
Manifest her.
Any wise closing words before we end it up?
Friendships.
Yeah.
Friendships. Stay close to friends. Meet new friends. Call them on the phone. Pick the phone up. Be kinder.
I love it.
There's a Hafez poem I love, and this man asks in the poem, he's like, "Hey God, do you think these visions I'm having of God are true?" And in the poem, Hafez, the guy's like, "Well, how many rose bushes do you have? Do you feed the birds in the winter?" And he's like, "What? I'm talking about sublime visions."
Yeah.
And by the end of the poem, he's like, I believe that they're true if you're kinder to every plant and every creature that you meet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we are friends. We're all friends, yogis. We are friends. This is what it's all about.
Perfect.
Yeah, we are friends.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you.